In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting in a hybrid model, both virtually and in person. The Public Works Commission is conducting this meeting on November 8th, 2023 at 4 p.m. on the Zoom platform and in person in accordance with the town's policy directive and guidelines issued on April 1st, 2020 and amended on May 7th. All right, I ask that all Public Works Commissioners, town staff and presenters activate their video and mute their microphone unless they have something to say or are participating in community dialogue. For members of the public, when I open the meeting to public comment, in order to be recognized, please use the raise hand option in Zoom or *9 by phone. If you are recognized, please state your name and address. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the town's website. So I, Andrea Solomon, hereby call this meeting to order. All commission votes will be, we can just vote in person. We're all here, except for Sven Weber. It will not be here at all. All right, call to order.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, so first we'll approve the review and approve the minutes from October 11th meeting of the Public Works Commission. Does anyone have comments?
I didn't have any.
I had one. Ooh, look at that for a change. Oh, under on page 2, under the discussion about the trees for the 250th celebration. I believe the question was asked if these trees would be in addition to our usual tree planting every year, and the answer was yes. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it'd be helpful to note that.
Okay.
Usually in addition to the annual.
Mhm.
Should I let Linda know or?
Yeah, we'll make a note of that and let her know. Yeah.
All right.
Here's the good news. This is recorded.
With that addition, I move that we approve the minutes of October 11th, 2023. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So going to 8.3, we will review the calendar for future meetings.
Yeah, let's see. I will give the commission a brief update as far as what to anticipate in December. December is when things really start cooking when it comes to town meeting and the preparation for town meeting. So that's where we'll be reviewing any warrant articles and initiatives that might be moved through Public Works Commission. We are also anticipating a conversation, a little bit more detail on the stormwater utility issue that we've talked about, provide another opportunity to share more. We introduced the commission just last meeting to this concept. And I would say before that meeting, December 7th, we've just worked with the town manager's office to identify a water forum. And this is going to be a meeting where we're going to be talking about drinking water, stormwater, and wastewater. They're all very, substantive on their own, but I think collectively they sort of talk about our integrated planning, and the implications are pretty significant. We're talking about sort of existing conditions and where we think we need to go over the next 10 to 50 years. So it's macro, but I think will be important, and we'll be making sure various boards and committees are invited. So
Could be at the townhouse.
that'll be at the Harvey Wheeler,
Like 7 o'clock, probably.
7 to 9, correct. And there'll be,
What was the date of
notice. This will be December 5th.
5th or 7th?
I'm sorry, excuse me. Let me look at my
Because
calendar.
you said 7th the first time.
I did. Hold on one second. I will. Confirm. I'm sorry, it's the 5th,
Oh, it is the 5th.
the 5th. That's a Tuesday.
Okay. 7 to 9,
Yeah.
and are you running that show? I mean,
We'll
is it-
be having some of our consultants and staff available, and we want to have sort of an overview and a discussion as well.
Have you met with any other boards or committees about the stormwater utility?
Not yet, not formally. This will be the first sort of unveiling of this. It's been discussed. I know the sustainability coordinator has talked a little bit about it. There was a meeting yesterday morning where we talked about this forum. And we've identified the stormwater utility generally and in past reports and budgets. But now is when we're gonna start talking about the specifics and, basically some of the comments from the commissioners from last meeting is. It can't be too soon to start getting out an idea of kind of the order of magnitude of what the cost might be and, what does a user fee, look like and that sort of thing. So that's what we're hoping to share in the December 7th meeting.
Okay,
Excuse me, the December 5th. Or some,
okay, because we actually first talked about it at our September meeting.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk about it last meeting,
okay,
so we're on, I think I'm glad it'll be on the agenda for next meeting.
yes, yeah.
We should know more.
Yeah. And the 7th will be that'll be the first kind of, excuse me, the 5th. December 5th, 7 to 9, Harvey Wheeler.
How many warrant articles are you aware of now, other than the stormwater? Is that the only one? so
That's
far?
really the one that's non-routine. And we'll typically have our routine
Okay, so
articles.
there's nothing about funding for here, Kais Road? or
No,
anything?
not at this,
Okay.
it's not anticipated, no.
Okay,
Okay, so, is that, we're done reviewing the calendar, so we'll move on to D1.
Excuse me, can I just one quick thing? I noticed, is there a TBD in January? So there is a meeting.
We'll have a
We
meeting.
have a meeting.
Yeah, and we'll sort of,
On the 10th,
that's right,
it just doesn't have an agenda yet.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. And in the summer, when we say TBD, our goal is always to try and, if it's light, we don't have meetings during the summer.
Okay, all right, so onwards to D1. 2023-24 winter meetings overview. Aaron's doing the presentation.
Aaron McCloskey, Highway Ground Superintendent, you come on up. I will, if I can share my screen. Share. Let me see if we can get to our winter maintenance. And then I will move this. So Aaron, if you, I have given instructions, clear instructions based on some feedback from the commission. That we try to keep our presentations punctual, told everybody 10, no more than 15 minutes, but. We understand there may be interest, questions, clarification, so Aaron will be our first to kind of help us meet that goal.
Are you able to zoom out a little bit on that, on your computer?
Yeah.
All right, good evening, everyone. Aaron McCloskey, Highway Ground Superintendent. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight to the commission. This is an annual presentation that I provide, going over, winter maintenance program within Concord Public Works. Obviously, we're in the season. So I'll start with our Public Works and Public Works Commission policy. I'm not going to read it kind of verbatim as I do every other year. It's kind of right there. But in essence, we're doing, maintenance of the roads during winter weather events. And really our goal is to provide, a safe condition as possible, kind of within the limitations imposed by, the environment and what we're seeing out there. So there's not a guarantee of, black asphalt roads within a certain number of hours at the end of the snowfall. But it's, we're out there and we're providing, as safe as possible, infrastructure and transportation modes for folks, during the winter season. Our priorities are, number one, the safety of our department and employees. We have a number of employees out operating vehicles and heavy equipment in some of the worst weather conditions possible. When other folks are kind of told to stay home, we're calling these employees in to do the work that needs to get done. So, the employee safety is the top priority. Public safety is the reason we're doing the work. So that's a big focus of our group. And we're looking at, being as efficient as possible. This is every year we try to tweak and modify to make our operations more efficient and also more fiscally responsible. How can we improve our processes to save taxpayers? In what we do, everything we do costs money, but we are, pretty responsible when we make decisions. And we're looking at sustainable aspects as well, trying to improve our operation as much as we can to meet the goals of the town, specifically, the sustainability goal in that respect. What we maintain, there's over 107 miles of roadway that we maintain. That's public right of way, 4 miles of private right of way. There is 44 miles of sidewalk that we plow and maintain, and a number of parking lots throughout town. All public parking lots. So season in review. We have, I just want to provide a couple of highlights here. The first snow event that we had was November 15th, so right around the corner, about 1 inch of snow, or 1 inch of snow, just over 9 hours duration. It was de-icing operation, which means we were able to use salt or brine solution to treat the material, treat the roadways and clear the snow. We didn't have to actually plow anything. We do that with just public works employees, and the cost of that one of them was just over $12,000. Last year, we didn't have a lot of high accumulation events, but so our highest accumulation event was in January. It was, a 29-hour event with about just over 4.5 inches of snow accumulation, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's extended hours. And when, there's snow in the forecast, if it's actively snowing, it's predicted to continue to snow. We can't send crews home. So people are staying on and maintaining the roads and keeping the conditions safe as possible. So it was a longer duration event. We did do some plowing. We had some contractors in. 29 hours is a pretty long time to keep staff here. But we've had longer events, upwards of 50+ hours, depending on the event. But as far as last year's total accumulation, that was the biggest event. It tied with our last event, which was March 13th. It was a 17.5-hour duration, much shorter, de-icing operation as well. You can see that there's, one thing that stands out is the price difference, the cost of the storm. It was a shorter duration storm, same amount of snow. We called in more contractors to keep up with it, just because of, we make decisions based on accumulation, duration, so it was a full operation. That's why it was more money, even though it was a shorter duration storm, and similar amount of accumulation. So there's a lot of different factors that go into the decisions we make in our operation. No two storms are alike. High level, so we had 18 total events, 27 total inches of snow fell, staff hours over 4,649 staff hours, contracted equipment hours of 631.5, 4,500 tons of road salt was applied, and total expense last year was $796,000. So that was our season as a whole. People often say, I've said in the last year, it was a light winter, right? For us, it's more than just snow. I don't know how many folks are thinking about snow tonight, but I know I am. We have crews kind of on alert, coming in early, ready to go, because tonight there's that mixed precipitation event that I'll get into a little bit, where there's potential for icing on the roadways, and we have to be ready to come in and de-ice the roadways when it's going to be 50 degrees out tomorrow midday. So it's kind of one of those things where we are constantly watching the weather, and you get these, in the fall and in the spring, you get the warm sunny days and the cold frozen nights, and a little bit of rain mixes in there, and we're in here working. So we're constantly looking at that. This is kind of an overview of everything that I'm going to talk about in the next few slides. But we'll start with planning. Our program, we really start planning the season before. Once the fiscal budget is available for us to start spending, we're spending it. We start a planning process. We're opening up purchase orders with contracts and vendors. So we're procuring road salt. We're getting contractors on board and getting them signed with a contract with the town that obligates them to their services. We are purchasing equipment that was, voted on and approved in previous town fiscal years. That's equipment that we use to maintain the roadway. So we're starting to order that equipment. We're ordering supplies. So some kind of our consumables, like plow blades or parts for vehicles that we would go throughout the season. Road salt, magnesium chloride, other chemicals that we use to help de-ice the roads. We look at route reviews. So we have over 18 plow routes that we run in town. We look at every route every year since things change. Roads change. There's new additions. There might be some subtractions. Usually there's modifications to roads. So we go drive every route, identify new hazards or issues or things that might cause a hazard for the operator or out in the roadway. So we look at everything. We work with our GIS department to update all of our mapping. We're looking at all of our vehicles and equipment assignments. Employees retire, we hire new employees, we shift people around, assignments change. So every year this changes to our operation, and we look at that to make sure that we are putting employees in this, best possible situation. We set them up for success. And vehicles might be broken down, vehicles might be out of service. We might have some new equipment, so we're constantly training and shifting people around. So we look at all of that. What else is there? So changes to construction and development. So there's active construction usually going on late into the season, like in West Concord, or the Butternut neighborhood. It's currently still under construction. There's new developments that go in during the construction season, so we're evaluating all of those and making sure that we can identify and communicate that to the operators. We coordinate across the departments. It's not just public works. It's not just a public works thing, winter maintenance. We work with CMLP, closely. They're operators that are, linemen during the day and snow blowers at night, right? So we work with them, water and sewer, highway and grounds, cemetery, fleet, everybody's involved. Facilities department's involved with shoveling walkways to buildings so that folks and residents and employees can access the buildings, the morning after the storm, when people need to come in and do business. And the school department as well, coordinate with them, we'll often work together if they have a situation when they have equipment breakdown or something, and they have a tight deadline with school and opening schools and school activities. So if they need anything, we're there to help facilitate. We have some more resources and capabilities than they do. So we work closely with them. They'll often ask us, when we have school, the road's gonna be open, walkways open, and we push to make sure that we are not the holdup for if there's a school delay or something like that. We work closely with the superintendent's office and the facility department to do the best we can to make sure that we aren't try not to be the reason that schools are delayed or canceled. And public safety, obviously, they're out there at the same time we are. They're responding to emergency calls throughout town at all hours of the day. We're constantly monitoring their radios and trying to do what we can to be ahead of the game. If they need assistance from us, we can kind of plow the way for them, literally. And employee training, we do a training with everybody. We had one on October 26th where we talked about winter maintenance program, expectations, assignments, etc. And then we work with Bay State Roads, which is part of the UMass Amherst Transportation Department they provide some specialty employee training for folks. We send staff to a couple of photos of our operations, the salt shed to the rear building with piles of salt that have been delivered that we move into the shed with a loader. On the right, there's our fleet supervisor is working with the loader that's behind him, that's picking up the sander and loading into the back of an F-550 truck. On the right is just another view of that, same piece of equipment being picked up. Scroll down just a little bit on. It's stored on, you can see these some Jersey barriers. This is the compost site. So we store a lot of our equipment off-site. We just don't have the space here with the building footprint that we have on the site to store all of our equipment here. So it's stored off-site and then brought back to the shop for the winter time. Photo of the training, we do that here with the operators. Just a little overview of our operations team I talked about. It makes up employees and contractors in a variety of roles. We have a number of plow routes, both public right of ways. We have some private roads, specific criteria for the private roads. People often ask, so I'll go into the details. So back in 1964, there's a town meeting vote that authorized the town to spend public funding on private road winter maintenance. And they have to meet a number of criteria. And the three big ones that disqualify any newer developments has to be a pre-1955 layout. There has to be a home every 500 feet and has to be wide enough and safe for our plows to do the work they need to do. So if they don't qualify for those, they are part of that private road list. So that road list doesn't change year to year, it stays the same. Plow number of sidewalks and also parking lots throughout town, and then 13 de-icing routes. And why those are different than the plow routes, we're able to de-ice a lot quicker than we are at plowing. Plowing, trucks are driving a lot slower, they're actually moving mass out of the roadway, right? De-icing routes, trucks are driving down the road at or below the speed limit, and they have a spinner on the back, applying road salt to the roadway. So we're able to do that much more quickly and effectively. And there's 13 trucks on 13 routes. And we have 22 plow routes. There's at least, ideally in a perfect world, there's 2 trucks on every route, on every plow route, just because it takes so much time to do all those routes.
You might mention on the snow, on the sidewalk business district, some of the additions you've had, just to remind the commission.
So constant requests to add sections of sidewalk to our plow routes. We have pretty specific requirements to meet that criteria that was provided in the packet. But recently it's been some of these walkways that the town has installed in parks that have been requested to be plowed. So last year we did a pilot program. We plowed the new walkway that was in Emerson. When that was designed and installed, there's no intention of originally plowing it. It's supposed to be seasonal kind of use through the park. But after a lot of consideration, discussion with the town manager's office and Alan and other departments, the decision was made to try to plow that. So we started that last winter. And it went well. It's really something that's done kind of after the initial storm, right? It's not done for public safety, it's done for kind of more recreation. And so that's done after the storm with some of our other follow-up lists that we do. Another one is the walkway that's out in Rideout Park that was installed maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Again, that wasn't intended to be plowed. But we are maintaining that now, and something kind of, after the storm, follow up, and then it's able to be cleared and be able to use for recreation. So our operations, we're continuously monitoring the forecast. So we have another number of things that we use. What weather information systems I talked about last year, it's kind of where we have cameras, 7 cameras deployed throughout town, where we're able to measure road temperature, air temperature, dew point, humidity, get a live feed of what the roads look like in conditions, so we can monitor when the roads are going to start to freeze, and any precipitation that might be on the road will turn to ice, so we can better time our de-icing operation. We do storm assessments and develop different response strategies. We're communicating with employees. We can, at every time clock, we're posting a 5-day forecast. We get customized for the town of Concord, so everyone knows when to be ready. We do inspections of the town. We're making sure that we're tracking and accounting for all of our resources, adjusting accordingly with breakdowns or maybe employee vacancies that we might have, and then communicating with other departments. We started a winter weather call last year where, I would post a winter weather call kind of meeting for all departments. Anyone that's interested can zoom in and see what our plan is, and if they want to adjust their plans accordingly, but we're going to provide that information of, here's what we're seeing in the forecast, and here's our game plan for each of those storms. And that was well received, and we work closely with police and fire when making kind of those decisions regarding our operations. Some photos here. Skid steer on a bridge deck, clearing that. Tree fell down across the roadway while trying to plow. Sidewalk machine, again, another skid steer on the bridge deck clearing, and this is one of the sanders being loaded by the loader here in the yard. Maintenance is a huge thing. Obviously can't do without the vehicles and the equipment. So we have a fleet supervisor and 2 great master mechanics. They are on working anytime we're running an operation. Breakdowns, we're able to address them and get the truck back in service as quickly as possible, or if we can't, diagnose it and figure out how we're going to fix it after the fact, maybe post-storm. We have a huge fleet with equipment. I thank the commission every time that I come here and I ask for equipment through the Capitol, and you're asking for enough, and say no, but you're very supportive, and we really appreciate that. We couldn't do that, the work we need to do without the vehicles, and your support of procuring those and funding those at town meetings. So a couple of examples. So that's an F550 with a 9-foot plow, dump body. That's a plow truck over there, International heavy duty truck on the left hand side. There's 4 of our Sanders. You can see some of the newer styles are all stainless steel. The older styles is steel, it's painted. And that's a plow truck, International heavy duty dump truck with 2 plows. It's a front plow and a wing plow. So because we can plow almost twice as wide with one operator, one truck. In the bottom right, that's our newer sidewalk plow with a snow blower on the front, and that's our smaller brine truck, F550 flatbed with a 300-gallon tank on the back with a spray bar wheel to brine the roads. This is a photo of the road weather information system unit. This is kind of the live feed of the desktop. If I'm on my computer or my cell phone, I can see a live feed of the yard and the temperatures associated. And that photo on the right, Sudbury Road at Fitchburg Turnpike. So those are 2 of the locations that we monitor. Treatment and plowing. So essentially, we'll pre-treat the roads before a storm, which means we'll either apply a brine solution or road salt solution or road salt mixed with magnesium chloride before the storm. That helps us kind of get a jump on the storm. It prevents hard pack on the roadway. So that's kind of the snow and ice bonding with the asphalt. And then once as vehicles travel through the snow that has the salt, it works its way through and helps to melt the snow. It's lowering the freezing point. And then once snow eventually starts to accumulate, just about 2 inches, we'll start plowing operations and continue plowing. At that point, we'll stop de-icing. We'll plow through the end of the storm, and then once the storm is over, we'll treat with salt again to keep the roads from refreezing. And that's essentially it in a nutshell. We'll also do downtown snow removal operations depending on a number of factors post-storm. So that's really a cleanup of the sidewalks, the sidewalks, the curb line, the windrow of snow that would be downtown Concord Center, West Concord Road Depot. And depending on how much snow is accumulated, what the future forecast looks like and the time of the year, we'll make the decision to do that or not. It's not done right after the storm because typically employees are here for long durations. They send employees home, rest, they'll come back the next night, and then we'll do this operation. It's an overnight operation, typically start 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night and run until about 5 o'clock in the morning. Snow storage, we have 2 snow storage lots in town, Walden Street 755, the compost site, we store snow in the wintertime when the compost site's closed. And in the Commonwealth Ave, we have an MOU with MCI to use their facility for snow dump. We do plow 2 athletic fields upon request from the school department. In the athletic department, Doug White Field and Memorial Field, 2 turf fields up there. We will plow those. And depending on, we'll clear hydrants, work with the water and sewer department, fire department to do that. And then any large snow piles for sightline issues, we'll clear those after the storm. So a couple photos. This is a downtown snow removal operation overnight in West Concord here. You can see we pulled the snow off the sidewalks into the middle of the road, wind road out, and then load it into large piles. And then loaders will fill dump trucks. It's kind of what it looks like after the fact, kind of before and after. And those are 2, that's an athletic field, it's a Memorial Field before we plowed and kind of during and after we plowed.
Right, thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Great.
Welcome.
Record time.
Yes.
Question, so what, this sounds very buttoned down. So what are the changes or challenges that keep you up at night in this part of your, besides your kids, that in this area?
In winter maintenance, just watching the forecast, because all it takes is like 1 or 2 degrees to make the call. And really it's, it's the holidays are tough. We've had a couple of storms where it's, it's a holiday and or even, a weekend, and you got to make a decision that's going to cost the town $10,000 to $20,000 at a minimum. And I got to pull 20 to 30 employees out of their houses away from families. And then it's the kind of the stress of, all right, do I wait? And then you're worried about public safety, right? Or you make the call and then pull these people in and then you don't necessarily need them, right? And you're wasting the money. So that's the kind of one of the most stressful decisions as part of the operation. But once you're going, it's pretty much, we're going. The long duration events where we're starting to really grind through and people are starting to just become physically exhausted. It becomes, a safety concern at times. So my job is, when I'm in, I'm not the operations manager, no one running the show necessarily. I'm trying to, depending on, we'll cover for each other, but I really try to look at employees, see what's going on, take a step back, more of a safety role of, okay, what's going on? How are people feeling? How's equipment running? What's the direction of the whole operation as a whole? And when you get to the longer duration stuff, that's when, it's higher risk. Those are a couple of bigger factors they're kind of the more stressful ones.
Have the weather patterns affected you? You're thinking about winter work. I mean, the moderation of temperature, have you seen in the last 10, 15 years any trends, or is it still too short a time frame to?
For us, it's kind of too short of the time frame. You see some trends of, okay, last year we didn't get a lot of snow, but we still got a lot of those mixed precipitation events. And honestly, those are the ones they're the tougher ones to deal with, because especially in Concord, you get 26 square miles, you get varying elevations, you got various tree cover it affects. So you might have, it's raining in West Concord and it's snowing on a Nurse Neck Hill. And so it really depends, even though it's such a small, it's almost like microclimates going around. That's why we have road monitoring throughout town. For us, it's forever gonna get buried with snow this year, right? But you never know. We always prepare for the worst, and we tackle what becomes before us every storm. So we're always preparing. So
Thank you.
You had a slide up there with the total spent on snow operations last year,
Yes.
$790 some odd dollars. If a snow event occurs during a typical workday, do those 8 hours get packaged into that total? Their normal 8-hour workday?
Yeah, so we track all of that. So we
Okay.
track when we're looking at storm event costs, we have a form that we use that we track straight time, overtime, fuel consumption, material spent,
Yeah.
all the salt that we use, what the cost of the salt is at the time, all those things, and that's a total storm cost.
Okay,
And then collectively, that's what that number is.
so
As part of the budget,
it's a total of
Yeah.
all the hours that went into it, no matter
Correct.
when the hours are.
yeah, so, and then contracted hours as well. Yeah,
Contractors,
yes.
you seem to be doing a very good job on getting contractors, where I've noticed that the state is advertising and Acton is advertising. How do you do that?
We have a good
Was
contract.
it a secret that you don't want to tell?
No, that's fine. I mean, I'll give you my philosophy on contractors. I think, we try to make fiscally responsible decisions. A lot of the contractors that have worked in the town have worked here for a few years. I've been able to build some relationships with some contractors since I've come to town, and they come back every year. When they make a commitment to us, we're making a commitment to them, right? So, and they might not be employees of the town, but we're saying, they're having their resources ready. They're telling their employees to be ready. Their equipment is ready. And when I call them, they need to show up. So on the flip side of that, I make responsible decisions when it looks like it's gonna snow and the forecast is fairly confident there's gonna be plowable accumulation. We call them and give them a heads up. Get your stuff ready, you're gonna be coming in. We don't know exactly what time, but you will be coming in. I can't speak for some other communities, but you often hear from, just conversations where people try not to call their contractors in because they don't want to spend the money on the contractors. Because if you look at the rate that you're paying a contractor, let's call it $100 for a truck, a 3/4 ton pickup truck with an 8-foot plow. And our employees, doesn't, their hourly salary is less than that. You're paying for you're paying for their contracted employee, their equipment, the fuel, the wear and tear, and the maintenance on the vehicle. It's a premium, but we need that. We need those resources in order to do the job to meet, our policy and our goal. I don't call contractors in unnecessarily. And if they have a question or concern, we'll address that after the storm. But, if we tell them we're calling them in, we're not gonna leave them kind of hanging, if we will. We bring them in and we use them because they're needed.
And that allows you to use our employees after, because these events can be prolonged and sustained, so.
Yeah.
They come in, they help us tackle the meteor part of the storm, and then there's a residual, and it can go on for days, and for the most part, that's just, our in-house resources, and. You talk about, Dave, what's difficult, it can be very, very tiring, and they're exhausted. We need to lean on them, and then they have to deal with people who are frustrated with their own private, snow management. Everybody gets frustrated when they clear their driveway and the town comes through, and it's a constant, sort of challenge to sort of keep the open, the right of ways open. And then you have private contractors who come in and sort of mess around, and we have to it's cat and mouse.
So what have we done and what can we do more for the employees when they're here for a long duration? I know you've got some cots, but that's not the most comfortable.
So I would say for us, the biggest impact for us right now when it comes to the operational loads of employees is the facility. The facility was not built as to be used as it is today. I think when it was first built, there's been a lot of additions and renovations, and there was a school bus depot here at one time, and the light plant was here. This wasn't originally built for the two buildings we use as a public works complex. We kind of fitted into it. As you can see, driving around, none of our equipment stored inside. So all the equipment that we would typically be able to pull inside, turn the engines off, save fuel, bring the employees inside, plenty of space for them to spread out and rest as needed. We don't have those facilities. There's employees sleeping in their trucks or sleeping in a truck for, or when they're downtime or coming in and, we're running trucks right in the mechanics bay. We're trying to maintain the trucks and fix them. It's broken down, and 10 feet away, there's somebody, trying to either take the break that they're entitled to. We don't have, bunk facilities like a lot of newer public works facilities for the long duration storms. You're able to kind of rotate people through or put people on a standby or stand down kind of or we call it rest period. And provide them that opportunity to rest. We don't have an adequate kind of space for that. A lot of our shop is outdated. If you were to walk through, I'm happy to give anybody a tour anytime. But really, that's the biggest impact on the employees and our operation is the actual physical facility here.
Is there a short-term solution, I'm not sure if solution, but fixer for this? Or is the space just not compatible to being modified?
We've done all the I think
Okay.
even before me, attempted modifications.
Okay.
There's really not a fix for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's just something we need to be aware of for the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does speak to also our employees do not have the benefit of living very close to the operations. And so that's one of the challenges. If you release them, they're heading off for, 45 minutes in regular, travel conditions, let alone,
Right.
storm. So that's also a factor of keeping them and trying to, look at the weather and, knowing that they can be available. So. it's
Well,
a-
yeah, that's the tough thing that we run into oftentimes. You get your waves of weather events come through. I know if I release 30 employees that have an hour commute home,
Oh,
I'm not getting them back,
yeah.
and it's a tough decision to tell somebody that, when they have wives and everything else, and so it's another stressful decision. if you want to actually say.
Yes.
At the end of the storm and, looking at the weather and releasing people at the right time, yeah. So.
Thanks.
Any comments from the public? Anybody have questions? Anyone online?
Anybody online? I'll take a look to see if there's any hands up. Not seeing any. I think we'll go on to the next item. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron.
On to D2, the 2023 roads program briefing, presentations by Joe Carrier, public works engineer.
I want to introduce Steve Dukran, town engineer, and Joe Cormier, who's been with the town for a few years, but recently promoted to senior public works engineer. So Joe has been given the kind of new duties, responsibilities of kind of managing the roads program and working with Steve. Joe, if you want to sort of, Steve, I'm sorry, if you have any sort of.
Yeah, let me start.
And I'm gonna sort of keep my eye on the clock, and at 5 minutes, I'm gonna tell you, 10 minutes, and then 15, okay? So we'll keep it moving.
We'll make sure it's done at 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've been here with Stefan before this program, so you'd see a lot of it that you've seen before. Because we do this briefing once a year, and the idea behind it is to give you a status of where we are currently with the program and kind of prepare you with how we're planning our program for next year, being 2024 program. So there will be another meeting that we follow up with, which will give you more details on that actual program. One point I want to make is we call it a roads program, which means that we consider all the projects, all the road improvements, but it's really driven by pavement management. That's where we get the budget. But we don't generally get budgets for other types of improvements. Whereas we'd like to and have a comprehensive roads program, we just don't. We focus on pavement management and trying to get our pavement condition index back to where it should be. So let me turn it over to Joe, who'll go through the slides and provide more details.
I'm Joe. It was nice to meet you guys. I think it's the first time. So yeah, I like Steve and Alan said, I kind of took over the roads program in August. I kind of came into it kind of middle of construction and in the middle of the summer and have kind of taken it over from there. So yeah, I guess we'll kind of get into it. So there's a few different topics that we want to go over. Kind of a recap of the 2023 roads program, the pavement management program as a whole, and the 2024 roads program and how we're going to develop that for next year. So to start off with the 2023 program, the engineering division and the consultant Stantec developed a preservation or 3 different preservation contracts as a whole to target the condition of the roads, restore the roads, and maintain them at an acceptable level. So those 3 contracts are phase 1, which is a preservation contract put out for a bonded wearing surface course treatment, which was to target roads in fair condition and maintain them at that condition. So we put those out to bid in July, and we received bids back that were much higher than we anticipated. So due to the high cost, you couldn't justify awarding that and doing that work. And we kind of dove into the analysis of the bids, and we're trying to figure out why this came in higher than we anticipated. And it was due to the auxiliary items that we're trying to also get done while doing this preservation work, whether it be some drainage improvements, sidewalk work. We found that cost was just higher than what we expected, so we couldn't move forward with this contract because of that. We asked the contractor, why that was, and a lot of this extra work they have to sub out, so they don't have necessarily control over their pricing. So to go on to the phase 2 contract, That was comprised of microsurfacing, fog sealing, and cold in place recycling. For the microsurfacing and cold in place recycling portion of this contract, we found a similar results to the bids where they were higher than what we anticipated. Again, it appeared to be for the same reasons. So we didn't award the microsurfacing and cold in place recycling. We did move forward with the fog sealing work. So that was awarded to Indus to treat 6.8 miles of roads. For the 2023 phase 3, this is our traditional reconstruction paving program. Bids received here were lower than expected. They were very favorable to the town. So we did award this full contract, and we awarded it to Lazaro. And they're set to treat 5.25 miles of road. These next two contracts are not pavement management targeted contracts. They're more intersection improvements, whether it's intersection capacity, efficiency, pedestrian accommodations, things of that nature. So the main Walden Street project that was put out to bid this July, we had a contractor on board to complete the work. There was some scheduling conflicts between the town and the contractor. So that's getting pushed off till next year with rebidding this winter. And the main street and Baker Ave intersection improvement project is currently under design right now. Again, that's not necessarily pavement management, but it's a roadway improvement project. This is kind of a summary of what we're achieving with this year's pavement management program. We're doing 5.2 miles of traditional reconstruction work and 6.8 miles of preservation treatments with the segments of road listed. So to kind of get into the construction of what we completed this year, under the 2022 phase 2 work, we installed a cape seal on Neck Hill Road. This cape seal is kind of comprised of two different elements. There was an asphalt rubber treatment that was applied last year, and then we overtopped that with a microsurface. So you kind of get the preservation benefit to seal the road and preserve it, and you also get the microsurface treatment on top of that for durability and better traction on the road. And then we also did about 4,000 feet of fog sealing to complete out this contract last year. Some of the construction work, the mill and overlays and full depth reconstruction work with Newport. Right now we have a couple different projects going on, kind of all in the same area in West Concord. We have a mill and overlay of Bradford Street and Winthrop Street. These are just mill and overlays. So it was a lighter reconstruction work. And then we have the ComAv project, which was more of a complete streets project, a full corridor reconstruction project. So as of right now, the work started in July. They've done the reclaiming of the road. They installed binder, new curbing, sidewalk work. There's been lighting improvements done by CMLP. So the work's moving along. Final paving, I believe, is slated for next week. Where substantial amount of work should be complete after that. So just looking at these pictures quick, there was a bunch of drainage work that was done on ComAv. We kind of identified these issues kind of during the development of the project when private utilities were putting in work. We did a drainage investigation and found out there was some more issues out there than we originally anticipated. The center picture here is just the construction of the sidewalks and the bump outs going in. That's more the complete streets aspect of the project. And then you can see the road and binder there on the right, which is the first of 2 layers of asphalt that are going in the intersection of ComAv. Give an update on the 23 roads program and what's been completed so far. So Lazaro Corporation, they've done a mill and overlay on Old Marlboro Road and Old Pickard Road. This is a little over 1.25 miles of road that was in pretty bad shape. So we're trying to target that before winter, just to cut down on maintenance needs. And some other work that's going on is the reclaiming of the Butternut Circle neighborhood. That's almost a mile of roadway in that neighborhood comprised of the Minot Road, Butternut, Black Duck, Mallard, and Fox Lane. So now to kind of get into the pavement management aspect of the program. So we use StreetScan, which is our pavement asset management program. And this is, the basis of that program is it utilizes a pavement condition index, which is a ranking of it's a numerical ranking of streets that kind of puts the condition of the roadway relative to all the other streets. And it gives us kind of an insight to the health and structure of the road. So to get this PCI, we hire out StreetScan. They do a survey of the entire town's network, based on factors that they can pick up in the road, like cracking, potholes, the rideability of the street, and road patches. And these are all surface indications of it kind of gives us an insight of what state the road is, what it has remaining for service life, and where it's at in its current state. So before we go into the full development of the program, I kind of want to give an overview of what our goals are this year and moving forward. So I think people think of pavement management as only, maintaining and improving the condition of the roadway itself. The roadway's pavement, but it's actually much more than that. Obviously our number one goal is to maintain the roadway. That is our number one goal. And I have a graph here on the left, which I think you guys have seen before, which has our PCI on the vertical axis and time on the horizontal axis. So right now our roadway is at a 68 PCI. With a $4 million budget yearly, our goal is to get that to 76%, a 76.5 PCI by fiscal year 28. And then you can see our other goals there is to improve intersection alignments, pavement markings, road surface drainage, redesign our road profiles to get water where we want it to go and dissipate off the road, improve ADA compliance, and the main goal is to reduce resident complaints. That's the number one goal, right? So this is kind of our approach to our pavement management program as a whole. So once we kind of have our PCI and we have an inventory of it, we can kind of determine where it falls on this deterioration curve here that you see on the top right. So when a road's in fairly good shape, it has a PCI of 100, which you can see on the vertical axis there, and has a very relatively slow deterioration. As the PCI drops to mid-range 52, 70, it has a much faster deterioration rate. And then as it kind of, as the PCI drops, deterioration rate kind of plateaus. So what we've learned is that, worst first approach in reconstructing roads isn't necessarily the most efficient. Historically, that's what the town's done. And we've seen that in the past, from 2018 to 21, our PCI decreased. So we knew this wasn't the right approach. So we kind of, we looked at this and we're saying, okay, well, we can apply these different treatment bands based on their PCI. And you can see on the right-hand side there, as the PCI drops, the treatment bands, the cost of the treatment bands increase dramatically. So our goal is to treat the roads before they fall into the subsequent treatment band, costing us significant more money. So going into the 2024 and developing our 2024 contract, these are kind of the key components that we're looking into and developing. So we want to update our PCI to reflect our most recent road work completed, apply our deterioration that we know is going to occur over this past year. We want to update our construction costs to reflect our most current costs, depending on the treatment that the road needs. We want to adjust our decision matrix to kind of, to better evaluate the roads in our street selection. So we can kind of get away from those auxiliary items that are kind of driving up the cost. So again, we want to explore ways to reduce the incidental construction costs. Conduct field evaluations, coordinate with utilities is a major aspect of selecting streets. We don't want to redo a street and have a construction, a utility company come in and start cutting it up. Then once we get our street selection sorted out, we want to present it to you guys, the abutters, get input from them, and then prepare the bidding documents for 2024. So this is just a quick summary of work that didn't get completed this year that's slated for next year, for the spring. So the fog sealing work, we got a little bit of delayed getting the contracts executed for the fog sealing work, and that this work really requires warm temperatures to minimize traffic impacts. So we decided to push that off till next year. The reclaiming, milling, and overlaying with phase 3. We got about half of this work done, a little less than half, this year. So that'll be the rest of that work will be pushed off to next year. Obviously the 2024 preservation and reconstruction contracts that we put together this year, those will be being constructed next year as well. And then our Main and Walden Street intersection improvement project and our Main and Baker Ave intersection improvement project as well.
I'm going to add one of the projects that we are pretty sure we'll be doing would be sprucing up the pavement in Monument Square, in preparation for the 250th celebrations. We want to get that done. It will include some improvement to the crosswalks, some of the handicap ramps on the sidewalks and so on. I think that's a definite.
Would that include better signage at all? Because people blow through those yellow signs, like they have no idea they're entering a rotary.
Right, we look at that. We understand that as an issue.
For cyclists and vehicles. And then the crosswalks are not well marked either because people are they're concentrating on getting through a rotary and not expecting a crosswalk right there. And I don't know if there's anything you can do to warn people who are crossing over from Colonial Inn onto that center, where all the statues are. But like people just wander through that rotary as if there's no traffic coming there.
Yeah.
So if you're anticipating a lot of visitors for 250th celebration, like if you're sprucing that area up anyway, more signage might be helpful.
Okay. Quick, harder look at the area.
And I will say, we've identified, there's much more significant needs that are part of just the whole egress, pedestrians, traffic, cyclists we know of. Our plan is see as a spruce up, so signage is something we should certainly kind of contemplate. Markings, pavement markings can help. We've been talking to the town manager's office about potential funding for an improvement. The crosswalk that's on the Lexington Road area is very difficult, doesn't allow people to go from that side of the road over to the cemetery area. So we have that identified as a potential construction, a little bit more costly. But yeah, Andrea, we've heard, and it's the community's loud and clear that something should be done with that. It's probably different than what you see today. And we got to make sure we include that the spruce up is not the solution. And we know that, but there can be improvements.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Great presentation. Couple of quick questions. ComAv, you mentioned wrapping up. Will there be some work that has to get done next spring, or are we expecting?
See,
close to
yeah,
100%?
yeah. So there'll be some punch list items that have to get complete for sure. Once the paving's complete, which I believe is planned for next week.
Yeah.
It should be most of the disruption will be out of
shape.
there. Yeah.
And then on the roads program, we talked a few times about revisiting our road improvement The policy, I forget what that's called.
Yeah, the road policy.
Well, pretty close then.
Yeah.
And I just wonder where that stands in anticipation of new projects being looked at.
Yes, so we had it all listed to do, and
Yeah.
then Stefan decided to leave us.
Okay.
So we didn't
Now
have,
Joe gets to do
we
it.
took a while to fill that vacancy. In fact, we just hired less than, it's just 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
Another engineer, so we have our minds to, and I discussed it, we looked at it, we said, yeah, we need to.
Yep.
Revisit it, yeah.
And I will say, we're also, and the commission's aware of the scenic roads policy bylaw.
Yeah.
Which will also, we have, I believe council is presently looking at the language, part of the recommendations and really a lot of the hard work from this commission to just make sure Public Works' voice was heard. So we are looking, with council to make sure that we don't have too much confusion between various authorities. And I think, Jeff, once that's been clarified a little bit, it'll help us. You sort of look at that roads policy, all right, how do we now adjust it accordingly? So
Two have to talk to each other.
it definitely.
Just have one question, and it comes back to Commonwealth Ave. I'm sorry to keep revisiting this one. I hear regularly from a Concord resident who's very close to me, my wife, about the state of that road, and because she visits there so often and is aware of the impact on the businesses. And I just wonder for future projects, if there, and maybe you've been doing this tremendously, I don't know, I'm asking,
Sure.
is communicating to the businesses about the delays and what's happening and why it's taking long. Because from what I understand, business owners there, they feel tremendous impact on their
Mhm.
business because of the disruption of the flow, the traffic and the parking. So I'm just flagging this for future to be aware of that management of, the commercial side of.
So I'm going to speak and
Yes.
candidly.
Yes, please.
And this is important for the town to realize, and I don't want to be facetious when I say,
No.
you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. That's something you talk about with construction.
Yeah.
Concord and Concord employees are, just from the get-go. We talk about communication. We don't do it perfectly. But we go well beyond what I would consider, sort of the norm. To try and provide outreach and communication. It's not always super effective. The challenge is when you're in an area like that and the construction is going to have an impact. The most important thing we need to do is explain it will have an impact.
Yeah.
I know that we have a senior engineer who has been very actively involved and out on the site talking to people. And part of the challenge for employees of Concord is having to tell people things they don't want to hear.
Sure.
And so I know that, we have sort of the challenge of being effective with the communication, but an example of just the challenge of construction and most lay people don't need to understand this, but this is the reality. We know there's a push to finish this project. We know Friday was a holiday. The contractor spoke up early in the week about this interest in, can we get in and do this work on a holiday? And we had to sort of look at the schedules. We canvassed the business owners to try and understand, would that be an upset? Or is this a long weekend that they would expect, some, uptick in activity? We're sensitive to that. It takes a little while to do this and it's all last minute.
Yeah.
It's all during the week. And then what we find is weather dependent.
Yeah.
Nobody hears that. The weather dependent for tomorrow is driving the schedule of the contractor, not us. So we got buy-in. There was a lot of hand-holding. People now understood and, they'll go off and do their business and like, oh, Friday, it's it. Friday's good weather. The contractor's telling our engineers, we can't come in on Friday because they have other projects
Sure.
that are lined up. And the rain on Thursday or snow is not the problem for Concord, but it's for their. And this conversation is, it's constant.
Yep.
And, we hear you, Dave, and we try, but, I think it's,
I'll just say too that you guys, I know you and Stefan met with the West Concord Advisory Committee in June and went over the schedule in detail, and it's pretty close to what you laid out. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was a public meeting that I think you guys had talked about how you had gone around to the businesses then.
Yeah.
So it's, you've actually stuck close to what your plans are.
Right, and said, we have been in constant contact with the businesses over there and the West Concord Advisory Committee. And one-on-one, we meet daily. If we're walking right in front of the store, we let them know that parking will be taken away in front of the store. So with all, all of that happening, there's still problems. I've had decades of working on downtown projects.
Yeah.
But I tell you, the two things are always difficult when you try to construction. Working in a business area and working near schools. There's never a good time to do the project,
Right.
except if school's out. And the biggest issue I think we face in construction is the construction window is literally just 6 months, right? And you have to pack all of this into 6 months. So one little upset can move that schedule, and now into cold weather, and cold weather has its own issues. It drives the cost up, you can't accept the quality, that kind of thing. So it's difficult, so. We just have to, everyone has to kind of make a sacrifice to get it done, and hopefully, move back there, next year.
And technology's helped, news and notice is a way of providing, pushing out information, having a website that's maintained and updated for those who are engaged, at least they know they can go, and if it's updated weekly, they can see that kind of progress, but it's a challenge for everybody,
Yeah.
but Dave, yeah, we're mindful of it, and if there's new tools or opportunities, we certainly, receive them, because that's our job, we do understand the impact.
I've tried to explain the variables.
Yeah, it's hard, and there's and when it's done, they're going to move on to the next site.
Which is gonna be Main Street in Walden, that's gonna be tricky.
Yes,
So that was originally partially funded with a grant, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it was a shared street grant.
okay,
Yeah,
and so the deadline was to get that work done was December 31st of this year, but you got it pushed out.
yeah, so it was originally December 31st. So like early on, the contractor was worried about procuring items. So we made the request to the state to push that off till June 30th
Okay,
this year.
but now you have to find a new contractor.
Yes, yeah. So like the issue was we were trying to get the contracts out early. We were trying to secure some funding because the project came in slightly over what we requested from the shared streets grant. So while we were securing that funding, the funding kind of pushed off the timeline for construction into the fall. Which we understand isn't a ideal time for businesses in downtown Concord, so.
So the low bid one wound up wanting to charge more for the job, or was adding costs on, or said that, oh, the bid's too low. So now you have to bid it out again, so your next bid will probably be higher than that low bid was.
Potentially, yeah.
So it'll probably, the project will cost more and more time is gone by.
Yeah, there's definitely the potential for that. Yeah.
Is there any time to revisit some of the concerns about like making crosswalks ADA compliant or more visible? Cause I hear a lot of complaints about crosswalks. I witness it every day, the crosswalks through town. Like you have vehicles going too fast, you have crosswalks not very visible, there's a lot of them. I don't think all of them are ADA compliant.
So I don't know how familiar you are with the project, exactly, but we are updating that intersection to be ADA compliant.
Okay.
And along with your traditional crosswalk markings, we are doing a brighter inlay pattern within the crosswalk to try to enhance that visibility. So we are doing some measures to brighten up the crosswalks and make, the pedestrians more visible. The bump outs there, I don't know, whenever you're driving through downtown Concord, you're always on high alert looking for pedestrians with the parked cars there, behind the parked cars. So the bump outs that we're creating kind of elevate the pedestrians and kind of give them more visibility. You know, give the motorist the visibility of the pedestrian visibility of the motorist. So there's a few different aspects that we're addressing with this project.
Okay, that's great. I
Yeah.
know we saw plans early on in the spring, but I didn't recall all the details, so
Yeah,
that's good to know.
Yeah, so those are the main elements that kind of pedestrian access that we're improving.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I've got a question about the preservation technique contracts that you weren't able to accept because of the higher prices. How are you going to do things like drainage now ahead of them? I mean, is that something we've learned and that therefore we have to have separate drainage projects that go out before we do the preservation techniques on roads?
Yes, and those are some of the things that Joe and I are planning out. Your options, we believe, a separate contract like that.
Okay.
Is one option. Another option is to add that kind of work in our traditional contract. So if you have the traditional contract, say will have say 3 miles of roads to mill and overlay or reclaim, add some drainage and
Someplace else?
from
Okay.
from the contract, and hopefully you get good price.
Okay,
And
good. As long as you've thought about
The
it
danger-
and you've got
Yeah,
plans,
yeah.
that was my concern.
The thing is, there aren't many contractors out there who want to do that kind of work.
I
And
understand
that's
that.
why when they put it in, it jacks up the price. So we're hoping that if we add it in our traditional contract, that it doesn't drive away contractors, you know.
Okay, any more questions from the committee? Any from the public? Okay.
I have 3 questions. First of all, what is fog sealing?
It's a rejuvenating oil, I'll call it, that they put on top of the asphalt. So it kind of it rejuvenates the surface of the asphalt to give it its flexibility back. You know, kind of like you know, it's the asphalt as it dries out, it gets brittle. And you don't think of it as a kind of a moving object, but it does, you know, like in the winter time when things freeze and thaw. So it kind of gives that flexibility back to the asphalt and seals it.
Okay, thank you. My next question is, I had heard at a select board meeting, Steve, you came in with several projects that the traffic safety group was recommending and the select board had approved, and one of them was the Sudbury Road, 7-Star Lane intersection, and I didn't hear anything about that. What is the status of that project now?
So that project actually is additional, put in additional signs to help people understand that it's only a one-way in. There's no exit from 7-Star. So it's a matter of adding a sign, and I know my staff's working with Highway and Grounds to get us that sign installed.
It's just gonna be one sign?
I think.
It was a few different signs. There was a couple, from my recollection, there was a couple signs being installed at the Ornac side of 7-Star, as well as a couple signs installed at the Sudbury Road.
Right, and
Entrance.
so what's your time frame on that? Because this was months ago that we approved this, and just wondering do you need a contractor that has to go out to bid or?
No, so our timeline right now is before winter.
Okay, great,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
And my last question is, I'm really glad you're thinking about the 250th anniversary. But I'm a little concerned that all of these projects got moved into next year. And you only have next spring and next fall, right? Because the anniversary will be in April and events will be starting before that. So how are you going to get this whole Monument Square spruced up and the whole Lexington Road and everything finished? You only have a few months, really.
The Lexington Road crosswalk, we've got an ask in. We're at a point where if we can't get the additional funding, that won't be, you know, part of the improvements. The road treatments and the signage and sort of the demarcations are not going to be as aggressive. So I think those are manageable. As I said, the sprucing up is not the solution to the Monument Square
Right,
sort of
right.
conflicts. It is literally just
Make it
that.
look good
It'll make it look good.
and safe.
Sort of like a mill and overlay, like a temporary thing.
Well, the mill and overlay, it's almost, well, say the fog ceiling is one of those. It
Yeah.
looks really good very
Okay.
quickly, but it's a spruce up, not the,
Right,
what we'd like to have funded in time to do.
so you think you'll have all of that, you'll have enough time, even with all this other work pushed out.
There will be, the plan of work will be adjusted based on that schedule. Yeah.
Okay, got a lot of work, you guys are really busy.
Always though, right? I mean, this is not unusual for projects to get delayed.
Mhm.
Depending on the weather and the contractors.
That's right, and the bids, what you get.
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks, guys.
There is
Thank you.
one, I see someone has a hand up, yeah, on, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi,
Is that,
Jeff Collins, yes.
thank you. Yeah, I was at, I think it was your last meeting, just expressing hope that the Commonwealth Ave project continued apace and on schedule, and I've been thrilled to see that work continue. Sorry, I did not introduce myself first. Jeff Collins, 55 Highland Street. So just thanks and kudos to the staff for getting that project towards completion and hopefully all wrapped up before the snow flies. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you. No one else is on there?
I don't see anything up.
Rob Wilson, work from Central Street. I'm just curious what you think the range of numbers might be for the Baker Avenue Main Street project. You have a sense of what numbers you think this may be within.
We had an estimate done a couple of years ago by a consultant and they were coming up with just over $1 million. We're hoping that we have tightened the project so that it comes in under because we don't have $1 million available. Yeah.
Well, actually, then, you might wanna talk to the Novo developer and see if they'll take it seriously.
Yeah.
The traffic, advisory committee, transportation. Planning committee is talking about that too, so it's definitely,
Yeah.
Yeah, that intersection is, we're all aware of the potential implications of the 40B and Baker Ave, so that's part of the conversation. Definitely.
Thank you.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Very much.
Great.
Thanks.
So now we get to discuss the enterprise capital.
Yeah, unfortunately, Jeff Morosky is unavailable. So I will be kind of stepping in. I will say we're talking the enterprise capital budget that's sort of managed through the Public Works. Bob Hill, who's the business manager, sitting over there and riding shotgun on managing this and meeting in Linda's absence has been sort of key in helping the water sewer division develop this capital plan. We passed out let me get this off the screen. I'm going to go to big numbers and spreadsheet, but go ahead.
Can I just have a quick question?
Yeah, please.
How should we be listening to this?
Okay, so thank you. Yes, so this is a introduction to just like on the general fund, this budget plan is we're really in the we're in a planning for FY25, but water sewer has historically always looked at 10-year budget plan. So we look at our capital, our O&M, and our rate structure to make sure that the investments we make are managed over a 10-year period. Unlike the general fund, we have that luxury of predicting what user fees will be. They're dedicated to invest into those systems. So it's easier for us to at least plan on a longer range, horizon. And really what people care about is that we're managing the system, we're maintaining and improving it as needed. We're complying with various requirements as utilities, both water and wastewater regulated utilities. We have standards that need to be met. They're not optional. So where a street has the option of having roads deteriorate and have low PCIs, you don't have the option of not meeting Safe Drinking Water Act, for instance, or a NIPDES permit for environmental compliance. So those are more drivers in what we do than really customer satisfaction is always there. But by achieving these things, we really do end up with also realizing, the customer satisfaction. I'm not going to go into every detail, and I will say that the memo that was provided was given to the town manager and chief financial officer. We are fortunate to have a new chief financial officer in town, Anthony Taldi, who is just new to town. He's going to be presenting these capital budgets to the FinCom and select board. We've started to educate him as to the needs, but when you look at our capital plan, I put up on the screen, this is the 10-year capital plan. And the numbers, and I'm going to start from the 50,000 foot, and then we can talk where we're going for our ask for 25. If you look at the bottom of this spreadsheet, the grand total of our water capital plans, you see go up in the pinkish color is what we're proposing. Is that, I'm sorry, I got to go up to the top. That is FY25 and moving forward. You're looking at somewhere in the order of $6.5 million plan for capital improvement for the water system. 95% of Concord is served by the municipal water. You see significant increases in our capital plan. These are annual adjustments where you see to the tune of $27 or $28 million in FY26, $35 million in 27, $9 million in 28. These numbers are driven by all of the items that you'll see on the left-hand side of this. And we break these items up into general, sort of areas of importance, but we have distribution system, we have our pump stations and treatment facilities, we have general plant, and we have an area supply capacity. And the numbers that we're presenting are primarily driven by the need for treatment. And you'll see these numbers here in the 26-27 of close to $50 million that we're looking at. We are looking at the next 10 years of a capital need for drinking water to the tune of about $100 million. It's significant. We've never had a plan like this. The driver primarily is PFAS, water quality driven. So we are in a situation a lot of communities are, we're going to be looking at significant rate increases to meet Safe Drinking Water Act standard. I say it because it's not really an option. We can't decide, well, we could decide we don't want people to be able to drink town water and find alternatives, or we treat the water to the standards. And we've been talking about this for a few years. This isn't a surprise, but until this year, we were hedging our bet on different things. One of them, what was the regulatory requirement going to be? And that has been, we've been tracking it, and within just a few years, we've seen it drop significantly. And this is based on sort of their EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, is the entity that really regulates these standards. And they've determined that the levels of PFAS that are of concern for developing standards are in the parts per trillion, the single parts per trillion. And we've talked before, but if people haven't heard me, we've never been regulated in any compounds in parts per trillion. let alone single parts per trillion. So the mere detection of PFAS in water is problematic. And we have equipment, analytical techniques that can get detections accurately of down to about 2 parts per trillion. 3 years ago, we were lucky if we could get them in the tens of parts per trillion. So the standards have gone with the limits of detection. And so we're not alone, but every community is now mapping out a strategy of, you know, how quickly, what are their sources of supply? And Concord, just to be clear, has a mix of different water systems. We have a surface water system, that's NAGOG that we've been talking about as a need for treatment for a decade. Then we have our groundwater sources that all individually, they're separate, will likely require some kind of treatment process. And we have to plan, and I've got a 10-year plan for compliance. That's the plus or minus $100 million. If it's accelerated, you know, the bottom line is what we're doing for treatment, we're going to have to borrow for. So, you know, we're going to borrow money. We're looking at, you know, sort of the need to, you know, when do we need the money? And Jim, I'm kind of looking here is whether we need, we're not looking at, actually, you know, we may be looking at a town meeting article for borrowing for water for the treatment.
Okay.
Thank you for, you know, flagging that. I've just, you know, building a plane on the fly, yes, but we have it in our pro forma.
Yeah.
The next thing would be to, you know, look for funding for this. But we can't move quickly enough because no matter where we spend our money, it's going to be towards treatment. It's going to be one of 6 different sources of supply, and we're going to do it strategically. But I can't emphasize enough, that's what's driving pretty much most of our rates. We're going to see our rates increase from somewhere we talk about sort of a typical water user. And we've only learned recently, we really don't have a typical user, but we have maybe, you know, a few. But if you're mindful and care about your water consumption in the bill, you might, you know, look at a $700 a year for drinking water. It's not bad. That's today. The pro forma and plugging in all operating expenses, all capital expenses, debt, you know, all that. We anticipate that you'd likely be doubling the bill, the annual bill over the next 10 years. And that's really what people need to understand. And it's not what increase is it 25% in Concord versus 30 in Worcester versus 10 in Acton. Percent increases doesn't mean anything. It's what's the cost of the water. So we're going to start communicating, you know, what those costs are, why we need to, and again, these are not, you know, options. And that's just for the treatment processes. So those are for our pump stations and treatment components of our assets are really driving the bus. We also have to continue to invest in the distribution system, the delivery system. We have to invest in our meter system and technology. We have to invest in our general plant, you know, things that aren't directly in one, you know, treatment facility. So there's a lot of numbers here. You're provided with it. We're not hiding anything, but it's complicated. But I really wanted to let you ask some questions on the water supply side of things because, you know, it's the order of magnitude. I'm telling you what's driving it. And when you get into the weeds, we still have to manage everything and do all our assets. But I would also just sort of say, as a quality driver, another thing we're making a provision for, because people will hear about it, because again, when it's affecting drinking water and, you know, how safe is the water? That's the number one concern everybody has. How safe is it? The lead and copper rule, which I just sort of mentioned in the memo, is another regulatory driver that had its own trajectory independent of PFAS. So there's been a target on, really it was the Flint, Michigan debacle to identify what are we doing with our, you know, not just, it's not the water mains, and people need to understand our water mains don't have lead in them. The services that goes from the mains to the individual connections and, you know, the houses and businesses, that's where you have old infrastructure that can contribute lead. So there's a program right now, Melissa Simoncini from Water Sewer Division has been working aggressively on this with the operations crew of inventorying our, you know, our service lines, getting a sense of how many of these lead services do we have? And there is a cry, and it's just, we know it's coming for a change in the lead and copper rule to include a requirement to have these services removed. And there's debates on what the most efficient way of doing that is. What does that mean when you're on private property? You know, some of the infrastructure is in the right of way, some is on private property. So we provided an allowance in our budget for under the water system, the water mains in this area here, where we're looking at increasing our a replacement to allow for a lead service line replacement program. That's part of our, you know, sort of plan, but you have a memo. I'm gonna take a breath. I've given you the lead, and you can ask any questions you want on sort of our capital planning, what we do and why, and I think it's.
So when people are trying to understand, you know, because you look at the numbers down the bottom, you
Yeah.
know, the jump from 6.5 million to 27 million.
Yeah.
The impact on me as a taxpayer is it's not like we're building another middle school. You know, I mean, in the sense of what it's gonna cost me gross, you know what I mean? I mean,
So think of it as it doesn't affect taxes, it's a
Yeah.
rate.
it's
It's your
okay,
user fees.
right,
This is, the enterprise is supported by user fees.
right,
And I will say, and I'll be as so bold as I've heard, you know, sort of conversations about, can the enterprise systems contribute to some of the general fund needs?
Mhm.
Well, we do to some degree. We provide for support and staffing and that sort of thing. But we have to be very mindful that the enterprise systems, to the same customers, you pay tax, we also pay user fee. It's going to be significant. I want people, and we need
Right.
people to know this. This time last year, we were exploring the idea of could we, knowing the order of magnitude, should we be looking at regional water?
yes, right.
Should there be, you know, sort of a regional solution? Because it's not just gonna be Concord. And we started exploring that. We've gone through a feasibility study. And MWRA's at their dime has done this study, and they say to the tune of about $1 billion, we could expand our system. And it would include the Metro West area. And we're willing to work with you. But we need to know that's another order of magnitude. And I'm here to say that that may be the 20 to 50 year solution for Concord. It's not the 10-year solution. We need to provide safe drinking water, but it may be something, and we're going to continue to explore where's Concord in 20 years from now? And what's happening with climate? What's happening with economic growth and development? What's happening for the cost to maintain this infrastructure that we've had to invest in? All those things we want to explore. And I'd say this will be sort of a separate assessment. This is for Concord to stand alone to provide the water it needs for the next 10 to 20 years. But we are also have a conversation to have about regional water for 20 to 50 years. And we got to think about those sorts of things. Even to when we say $1 billion for regional expansion, in 20 years, that may sound like a bargain.
How do you get PFAS out of water? Is it a filtration process?
Yeah, there's a,
And we don't have like a process that does that right now?
no, in fact, the process right now is, it's fairly basic granular activated carbon or resin of some sort. What we're finding though, is it may or may not be the most efficient way to do it. A lot of people have had to do it quickly. But time will tell is what happens when you have this material. PFAS is now enriched in the material. Now you have to manage that. And where does that go? And what's the cost to destroy it, get rid of it? And this is a challenge to the regulators. I'm going to say
Yeah.
to regulate properly, because if we knee jerk and react to everything, there may be unintended consequences. And so in the drinking water side, we can say, and you're going to hear this, and I will just say, when we talk about a playing field that may contribute PFAS to the environment, and even worse, to our drinking water, I'm gonna say, we're gonna be treating that drinking water. We're not managing PFAS from the generators and all the uses that are still allowed.
Mhm.
And the chemical industries who manufacture these products can change a compound and it is not regulated. So we might be chasing our tail. When we talk about PFAS in drinking water, you're just gonna see treatment at pretty much every source of supply, no matter what the contribution is or how great it is. How long it's good and how long that resin's effective would probably be driven by an order of magnitude of, is it 5 parts per trillion, 50 parts per trillion, 500 parts per trillion? That may affect your operation, but you're gonna have some kind of treatment.
But like you're spending money to treat it because you have to, because it's regulated, but you don't know if how you're treating it will last. Like you don't know if the method of treatment you're paying for now is something you can use in 10 to 20 years.
I'm encouraged by technology because the industry is racing to find a solution to this problem. So there's technologies out there that are being explored and very creative that may be a better solution. And yeah, that's the challenge. If you do everything based on today's existing technology and understanding, the PFAS, it may be outdated in 5 years, or at least more obsolete. Or there's a better alternative. It might be 10 to 20 years, but it's very real. And if you start looking on your Google News stream and you happen to click on a PFAS, guess what? You'll start seeing more and more and more articles because it's everywhere. And there's all sorts of discovery that this region is identified. Well, it's always been there. They finally tested. And we've done our testing. So we know where it is. We know it's in our sources of supply. But it's at low levels. And really the concern I have is $100 million to take us from parts per trillion to something slightly less than parts per trillion is a significant, I would like to say, cost benefit that someone should run, but that's not what Concord can do. That's what EPA should do.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
And this slide here, some of my questions. So total user fee supported.
Okay, yes, and we have debt and user fee.
Yep.
Yes, correct, yeah.
But that goes up and down, but what do we bring in user fees on a yearly basis, roughly?
We are probably in the 5 to 6 million now, and we're probably getting to the 10, when
Okay.
we're done with it.
So that's what we're
And
proposing to draw from that account.
Yeah, so right now, and I'm sorry, Jeff, it's a good point. We'll talk rates, as
Yeah.
well, but this was really
Yeah.
just the capital plan. But we haven't pulled together the entire pro forma. We have an idea of it. That's why I can tell you it's gonna
Well, you're
go.
gonna go from about 7.5 to just over 15 in 10 years.
Okay,
Based on what we're projecting our performance for changes in our rates to support the capital plan.
And that's what these numbers reflect?
Correct.
yes. And we're looking at 12.5% rate increase for the next 5 years. And we're doing it staggering because if technology improves and we can adjust the
Yeah.
capital plan, then we can adjust the rates accordingly.
And is the debt, would that be paid off from the water fund?
Yes, through the
So
user
not
fees,
from
correct.
the town, well, it's all the town.
Well, no, but it would be the user fees that allow you to pay it over 20, 30 years.
And then I always bring up grants.
Yes,
There's new regulations. Is there any funding available? Or is this what they call an unfunded mandate?
unfunded mandate, yes, you can say that.
Unfunded mandate.
And Concord, we'll tell you the real story. We were eligible for SRF funding, that's the state revolving fund, for the NAGOG treatment facility. Prior to the PFAS, identification PFAS. PFAS became a new hook for a lot of communities to get funding. If you had to do this emergency treatment for PFAS, you now got elevated in the ranking. The problem Concord had is we were at a level we weren't sure if we needed to treat for PFAS. We couldn't proceed with the treatment facility as it was designed up in Acton. So we started exploring some alternatives. And so we fell through the cracks as far as our availability and our ability to benefit. But at the time, and this is what's really frustrating, it was a 0% loan,
Mhm.
which is good. You know, but it's still a loan. It's not a grant. We've been informed that that bin that we were eligible and couldn't move on, only recently through the Clean Water Trust, some of that could have been principal forgiveness. They only decided that within the last month. So you're making decisions with, you know, not just the technology changes, the regulatory change, it's not a standard. The new standards we're concerned about don't exist, but they're on the radar to be promulgated by EPA within the next year. We know that if they keep to that schedule. If, and we're told they will, they're very earnest in wanting to do this, but this is the chasing of the grants and support. There's a lot of communities that have a lot of needs. And I've heard, you know, some presentations on literally the drop in the bucket that's available for, you know, even this infrastructure bill. It's not going to be something that I'm going to be leaning on heavily. We'll be submitting applications for it. No question.
The new regs are nationwide.
They're nationwide.
So
And the money
every
is-
state and community
that's
gotta
right.
look at
Exactly. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, my questions are little dollars.
That's okay. It's okay. We still got to pay attention to the little dollars because they add up.
Well, in the beginning of your memo, you talked about water mains.
Yes.
And in the description, 75% of our water mains are over 50 years old.
Mhm.
That's, you know, and you were talking about what the lifespan is for some of the lifespans for some of the water mains based on industry standards, and we're getting close to those, if
Yes.
not exceeding them.
That's right.
And our program is minor because it costs so much.
Yep.
Are there other solutions?
Not that we're aware of today, but by bringing up and increasing our rates, at least for the treatment, that will be, you know, I'd say within the next 10 years. After that, we'll be making significant funds and revenue where we can probably start adjusting and increasing our investment in the distribution system. The problem with the distribution system is you roll the dice, 75 to 150 years. And Jeff knows there's systems out there with 120, 130-year-old pipes. And we're all in the same boat. So it's a question of will we accelerate and can we accelerate the replacement eventually? And what we're showing, it is modest. We're probably at 50% of what we'd like to do.
And I see that we're doing it when we're doing roads.
Yeah,
Which maybe is a good idea, maybe it's not a good idea. I mean, it could well be that. I mean, you probably have some information on where the breaks have occurred
Mhm.
in the last
oh,
2
yeah,
years.
yes.
Are they in certain areas which make you say, okay, this is likely to be where more breaks are gonna happen? Or is it's all over the place and you don't have a pattern?
No, so the point is, how do we prioritize if there's needs that are realized because of problems?
Yes,
And we have actually, over the last 20 years, caught up with that. We've hit the problem areas
okay.
based on sort of deterioration or number of breaks. In fact, butternut was a good example. You know, there was increasing frequency. So it's now more strategic.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad.
And
to
we
hear-
do keep our eye on areas of, frequency, but that isn't presently a metric that's driving that
Okay.
today.
Because it's more random.
Yes,
It
it is, correct.
What I'm hearing you say.
Correct. And I
That's
will
good.
say, the industry says you can anticipate about 15, 16 breaks, per 100 miles of pipe or
Yeah,
something
we
a
get
year.
2 or 3.
And we typically get a handful of them, maybe up to 10. So we're better than the average, if that helps.
Okay, I got, if people want to jump in, let me know.
Yeah.
What's a flushing hydrant?
Okay.
That's something that's different than an eye hydrant.
Yeah, that's right. So hydrants, they all have personalities and things, right? The flushing hydrant is one which has an automated valve and control so that you don't have to manually go open it up to flush it, to purge water.
Which is what we do periodically.
And we do that to maintain quality, out to the ends of the distribution system. So
Why
it's automated.
is it worthwhile buying one that's a lot more expensive than regular ones? Just
Because the
Because it
operator
doesn't-
expense, yeah, you could have the cost of operators going out and operating the equipment or just having it automated. That's one, and then the eye hydrant gives you information on break.
Right,
So
break.
that's the
No, I
technology,
understand.
yeah,
But since we flush almost everything every year,
correct,
is that correct?
that's correct, yeah.
Just having one of them doesn't seem to me to be
Good question.
a reasonable expenditure.
So they are going to be very, unlike the eye hydrants, which give you pressure wherever you want. The flushing hydrants are more strategic in isolated areas. Not every hydrant, it would have a value. It's when you got a long dead end where you can actually draw water up through Monument Street that doesn't connect to anything, or Lowell Road, or Middlesex School, that area. So there's areas where there are more prone to
Stale water.
stale water. And so there's
So having
not a
it,
lot of them.
having it automatically be able to do it,
Summer long is not
Okay.
part of the routine
Okay.
flushing.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Pine Hill Reservoir,
Yes,
you're gonna be doing a lot of work. Are you gonna have to drain it? And is that gonna cause us concern about water supply?
yes. So Pine Hill has two chambers. And so you can isolate one while you do an improvement and clean and inspect the other.
Because that's the bigger reservoir.
Correct, and we have actually done, use of equipment, robotics,
Yep.
equipment to actually do. Inspections, the water is very clear, you can see a lot of the structural issues in the water well full. But when you drain it to do any patching repairs, you would do it chamber by chamber.
Okay, that's good, okay.
Yeah.
Route 2A. Acton Water District.
Yeah.
We're just putting an additional, we're contemplating putting an additional pipe down to not disconnecting anything else that is in place now. Until the treatment plant is,
That is
is that reasonable?
an area of conversation with Acton.
Okay, cause I would think you want to talk with
continuation of
their water district.
Acton, so to be clear, the 2A corridor has been served by the town of Water for 100+ years. Acton Water District is separate from the town of Acton, different entity. They do not have water in that area. We have provided water, and there was negotiations between Acton Select Board and the town of Concord as far as what's Concord's obligation to continue. We had these conversations when there was very contentious permitting activities over for our treatment facility. And, what we need to do is that corridor of water, we need to have a solution that is not going to be a burden to Concord ratepayers to the benefit of the Acton taxpayers. And we got to find out what is that balance as far as service and our infrastructure needs. So that's to be.
You're having
had.
discussions.
We're having discussions and we'll continue those.
I'm done with water. I'm in the sewer now.
And I can give you a little overview of the sewer if you're good with water.
Oh,
And there may be some questions from the audience on water. Please ask.
Oh, yeah, good question.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Alan. Could you describe the impact on your numbers that having maybe 450 to 500 housing units added relatively quickly may have?
On the
We've got
drinking.
a couple of 40Bs.
Yeah, on the drinking water side, less of a concern. We still have capacity constraints. We're regulated through the Water Management Act. But there is some allowance for growth. And a 40B would be, fit within, if the town needs it, we have the capacity to supply it. We may need to go through some regulatory obstacles to increase our allowance and that sort of thing, but ultimately on the drinking water side isn't a significant constraint.
It sounds like there's a but there.
No, it's not when you're dealing with the water resources, everything is tightly regulated. And so you have to defend almost every time you're expanding your system. you have to do a mother may I to the state.
Thanks.
Any other questions on water? Anyone in?
Okay.
online?
I'm sorry, anyone online? If there is, no. So on the wastewater side, the overarching issue there, and this is sort of interesting, only a third of the town is on the municipal sewer system. That's important. So that's where most of the town isn't. Those who are get the benefit of municipal service, but they also pay user fees for it. When you don't have municipal service, the alternative is a Title V private septic system or a packaged treatment facility if you're a large complex, like the Prescott or the Muse or whatever. They have their own packaged treatment. So the driver for wastewater is interesting. It's keeping wastewater from coming up, and public health. You want to flush and what did I have? I have a colleague who testified at State House, and the rep called him after and said, "I've never heard a statement, but it's stuck with me. People have a propensity to flush things down the toilet." And he's right. We need to collect that, treat it, but it's primarily driven by environmental compliance. It's not sort of the public health. Yes, we want it away from you, but environmental drivers on a wild and scenic river with phosphorus limits and nutrient limits and drivers that are affecting our stormwater really dictate most of the expense that we anticipate over the next 10 years. We will be replacing our wastewater treatment plant, a lot of the equipment within it. The last time we did a major upgrade was in 2007. So in around 2027 is when we should be looking at significant investments. On a positive note, when we look at the budgeting for that, the debt that we took out for that last upgrade from 2007 is being retired about the same time we now need to go out for the next 20-year plan. So that's sort of mapped out. But on the macro, Bob, can you kind of remind us as far as what that the cost per service is sort of on average?
Right now, $779, and in 10 years, we're expecting it to be about $1,164.
So 50%.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking at for the sewer. And so really it's the similar, I have a spreadsheet here. I'll bring this down, but the sewer is a little less complicated, but most of our investments is, say, if you're looking at the capital plan at the bottom, you can see, it's small, significantly smaller, but remember, the burden is on a smaller population. Only a third of the town is responsible to, cover these costs. So that's sort of a macro issue. We also know that wastewater capacity is a serious problem, as Phil had mentioned on the water side. That is a big deal. We have a comprehensive wastewater master plan that's now 20 years old. We continue to hear people who want to get the benefit of the municipal sewer, especially in the area of the downtown. Our plan only made for some accommodation, but the plan also provided or had a promise of expanding sewer to certain neighborhoods, not for expansion, but to help them manage what would be costly Title V improvements or replacements, with the benefit of, with some environmental benefit. That was what the plan was based on. And we're going to start a whole assessment of, is it time to reevaluate the plan so we can accommodate newer interests? There's a lot of drivers for economic growth and development. Maybe the balance of, do we want to concentrate what is available to that area versus areas that we had identified tentatively for future expansion. We're about to have these conversations, and we're also talking about potential partnerships with other entities to try and figure out other ways of kind of sharing wastewater treatment responsibilities. We're going to get creative, and but we need the community to understand where we stand with that one, because we have sewer improvement fees that we collect to help offset some of this cost because of the small burden and small population. But I think the overarching issue with sewer is we need to do significant equipment replacements in the next 5 years, and that's what we're planning for at the treatment plant. Other than that, the memo sort of gives some background, but I think it's a little less complicated, but still.
Any other questions? No, anyone from the audience? Okay,
Okay, great, excellent. I'm
Thank you,
sorry.
Jeff. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I like that 10-minute presentation. We're trying to get, this is good. This is, I think, what you want to have that you can ask.
Is it?
Right.
This is big expenditures over the
Yeah.
last 10 years.
oh,
Yeah.
there's- Okay.
Yeah.
So should we do the director's report, D4?
Yeah, we'll do the director's report. Let me stop sharing and see if I can pull that up. I don't think I pulled that one up before. But Steve Dukran, I think you are,
Covered, done.
I think you're up. Yes, please, yeah.
Before you do that,
Yeah.
can I recommend that the chair write a letter of thanks to the retired employee, Adrian Mahone?
Yeah, and so
From
everybody,
the commission?
thank you, Jim. And so people know who you're talking about. He goes by Mick. Oh,
Okay.
most people don't know him as Adrian, but.
Well, I just got the memo.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Mick is been sort of, let me get this so I can find
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
director's report.
12, 30, yeah.
We have the right presentation. Oh. All right, let
You
me,
can work that out with Linda.
Yes, absolutely.
oh. I might be in this, we're in this wonderful world of upgrading to 365.
Okay.
And so now I need to find where this is hiding. Give me 1 second. Okay, yeah, Steve, yeah, if you can start, Steve, with kind of the overview, I'll give you this is the director's report while I find it.
We can start by talking about what we talked about earlier, the
Roads program.
roads program, so I can skip over that and go to Giro. Work has started. Okay, here
Okay.
we are.
You go.
Oh, this is.
Oh, there you go. So let's just give kudos to Mick Hone and thank you, Jim, for acknowledging. It really does speak to, we're losing
People who know.
incredible, the institutional knowledge, and it's, Aaron mentioned about sort of new drivers, Mick has been doing snow routes. He can do them in his sleep, much like when you go to your driveway, you know how you do it, you know the ins and outs, and Mick would have known his route and has done it for hundreds of hours, but he's been really, sort of instrumental in our parks and tree area for many years. So a lot of the improvements you see in downtown and that, Mick was a major contributor. So Steve. you have
Yeah,
to-
so I'm going to skip over that because we
Okay.
talked a lot about
Yeah.
that earlier. And here, so work over Giro has started. It's cleaned up, all the overgrowth has been removed, a lot of weeding took place. And there's a contractor, a carpenter that's starting on the pavilion building to put on the roof and finish the framework. And paving has been scheduled tentatively for the middle of November. Hopefully that brings us to substantial completion. There are a lot of dead trees. And just looking for trees to replace those, but they may not be able to get them all done this year. So that work will be pushed to the next year in the springtime. Right, and but yeah, more about paving. I just want to point out the picture on the left, that's when we correct the ADA ramps on the sidewalk, which you're required to do every time you do a paving project. So that's the auxiliary work that costs us quite a bit when we want to do preservation work. Same thing here, on the left side, I think there's some handicap ramps going in there, but the the plan on the right, we just want to point out that we look for opportunities for reducing pavement when we can at intersections. And so when we pave this over the weekend, you will see a bit of a change there. We're hoping over the winter that we will complete the work in this section and maybe even reduce it even more. In terms of design, it will involve drainage work, so which is what we can take on at this point in time, but we're spending some time to see if we can improve that even more for next year.
And reducing pervious cover is a good thing ultimately, and I know Jeff, you've raised in the past, looking at the intersections and how they actually work is also, very important, so. I think our engineering division is, kind of realize that and starting to, make sure that's incorporated in some of these designs. Thank you, Steve. Water sewer?
Before he goes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The pavement markings. They actually went out the night of our meeting last month.
Ah.
Most of the markings were done. I noted in the notes here that they had to stop because of cold weather or whatever.
Yes,
Did they get most of the town done that they were expecting to do?
we have got most of it.
That's what I thought, but I guess my only comment would be, can we start earlier so that if cold weather comes, obviously every town in the eastern Massachusetts wants to get pavement smart. So, getting in the queue is probably the biggest challenge. but-
Yeah, we've been talking about for a while now.
Okay, I know. I give you a hard time all the time.
It has to do with scheduling, police coverage and all of that, so we are in conversations with them to try and make some changes.
Yeah.
Going forward.
Okay, but I think they did a pretty good job from at least the neighborhoods that I've driven on. Thanks, Steve.
Sure.
Jim, you beat me to the punch with Jeff not here. It's all
Oh.
about hydrants, flushing and others. And, actually it just introduced John Allard is one of our newest members of the water sewer crew. This is a gentleman who came right out of high school. Coming into, work as a crew member, for our division. And, it's just, it's great and sort of one of the only tap dancers we have, so. But anyway, so and we have a hydrant replacement program. There was some work done in the area where the Main Street, Walden was gonna be to accommodate the change in that intersection. So they had to, some of the hydrants are in, high visibility areas. When we went out there was all sorts of concern. Uh-oh, the project started. It's like, no, we're just doing this in anticipation of that work, but so in any event, that's we talked water and wastewater enough. I'll go on.
Okay,
Go ahead, Jim, for
wait.
you.
The meters,
Yes,
they're delayed again.
yes. Let me
Could
explain.
could you explain why?
So, to the best of my ability, the meter replacement program is not just the meters themselves, but the technology that's gonna allow us.
This water meters.
This is, so water
There's electric meters
and electric, but you're right.
Parking.
No, thank you. No,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
utility meters, so we have a municipal light plant. And we have our water and sewer utilities, and the light plant, we've always partnered when it comes to some of the meter technology, because we have the same meter readers. We'll read the meters. Same billing group, customer service group. But where it ends is the technology they need for their specific purposes and with, time of rate, water, electric
Time of
use,
use, yeah.
time of use,
Yep.
very complicated. Regrettably for us, we have to, when I say have to, we partner with them for efficiencies. But water sewer doesn't necessarily drive the bus. Most of the technology is customized around electric utilities. Water sewer is lucky when they say, yeah, we can do water sewer too. And it's usually that's how they put it. And then we find out, through lots of hiccups, well, you're new at this when it comes to water sewer. But in this case, with the electric municipal light plant, there's been some real challenges as far as the vendor and the availability of the materials. And, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, it's really sort of the hardware technology. There's been significant delays for the unrolling, for the light plant. We are preparing to work alongside with them, but we'll have our own track, but the backbone doesn't exist for us to take advantage of. It was supposed to be delivered in the fall. We now knew it was gonna be spring and maybe summer. And so we're on hold and for water sewer with our management group right now, we're really not in a position to tackle it anyway. So the delay is not gonna cause us real headache, but it's very real.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thanks for asking, yeah. Okay, Aaron McClosco, you want to sort of give us a wrap it up and bring us home?
Good evening again, Aaron McCloskey, Highway Ground Superintendent. So the first slide, we conducted some employee training this past month. 2 pieces of new equipment arrived, a Caterpillar tracked skid steer on the left and a Caterpillar front loader. The skid steer was approved for purchase at town meeting in May of April of 2023, and the cat loader the previous year's town meeting. So those both arrived this fall. We brought in the vendor and conducted training with kind of all the operators involved in operating that equipment. So photos of that training's been something of focus of late, and with regarding safety and operations. Anytime we bring a new piece of equipment, we want to make sure, operators are trained in that.
Yeah, imagine yourself climbing on and being told to do something with your equipment, right? It's not your, your snow blower, so. Yeah, takes a lot of skill and knowledge.
Just some of the work that's been done recently. The picture on the left is one of our master mechanics maintaining the swap loader. It's a heavy duty truck, and then swap loaders basically hydraulic components that allow us to swap the bodies and use one truck for multiple purposes, such as whether it's an asphalt hot box or a dump body. Or a catch basin cleaner. That one truck can be used for a number of things. So he's in there greasing, maintaining the swap loader components. Photos on the right are some of the highway crews doing a roadway patch repair.
That's a good question. When you get a new piece of equipment, do you have to send the master mechanics off for training too, to maintain new pieces of equipment?
It really depends on what the equipment is. Usually we don't like, we'll have employees in 10 different trainings where there might be air brake maintenance training or some type of hydraulics training. If it's vehicle specific, typically we have the vendor come to us.
Okay.
Because they will send a representative that's whether it's their mechanic or their trainer, whoever it might be, that is an expert that can then train our staff here on site with the equipment.
It just struck me as the more different equipment you get, or more
Right, but
sophisticated.
you may notice too that Aaron has been trying to standardize the equipment. So in the past where there's been replacement, it was truck A and truck B, but now they're the same manufacturer, the things that we replaced them with. So I think that's a help too.
Yeah, thanks for noticing. Yeah, we've been trying to stick with certain manufacturing brands. Everything that we order has been off, as far as equipment, is off the state contract. And the same vendors. That way our mechanics don't have to, not only the training for the mechanics on how to repair it, the operators, the controls are very similar. And then it's the maintenance and the stock of the materials we have on shelf, right? When you have a breakdown in the middle of the snowstorm at 2 o'clock in the morning, Napa, Ford are not open, right? So we have to have a cache of parts and materials on the shelf here that we can make those repairs. So standardizing is something that we've been trying to do all across Public Works. Field aerating on the left-hand side, it's the one of the Toro tractors with the aerator. Right out, and then on the right is some drainage excavation. The school department, like I mentioned earlier, we work closely with them on a number of things. They've asked us to help with a flooding issue with the Alcott playground. And I think they have some budget concerns or whatnot. And so we have a stormwater engineer, the equipment and the resources. So we kind of work hand in hand and are helping them out. And we were digging a test pit to see what kind of material is there. And since then, our stormwater engineers give us a little plan that my staff can go out there and then put in some drainage pipe to help.
Yeah,
Situation.
Public Works with our operations are a go-to group. And it's very easy to ask. It's very difficult to, sort of explain why you're busy doing a lot of other things. So we do the best we can, but it is a challenge to, sort of, we help when we can.
Yep.
Here's their grounds crew working here on the left-hand side. There's the chipper body truck. Against it's another swap loader, so it's a chipper body towing the chipper trailer. And on the right-hand side, that's our bucket truck. The one that's being replaced in 2 years now, waiting on that truck. But that's the truck in service, one of our skilled parketry specialist aerial operators up there, Prudence and Oakshade.
Okay. Aaron, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Oh, Aaron? Since the meeting started, the temperature on the bottom there has gone from 42 to 38 degrees. Get out here, boy.
The stress level is going up.
He's got, what, how many points of information do you have accessible right now in town?
7
data
points.
There you go.
That's great.
Temperature.
Well, it usually, where it says earnings upcoming.
Oh,
That's where it used to be,
Yeah.
before you went to Bob Hill.
Was that it for director's report?
Yes.
Okay, so commissioner comments on anything? We did have a lot of comments. Anybody from the public? Or online?
I see a hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carlin Reed.
Carlin Reed, yeah.
Hi, Carlin Reed, 83 Wits End. I'm a member of the Finance Committee, but I'm speaking on my own behalf. Thank you very much for preparing the 5-year and the 10-year capital plans. It's going to be a lot of money, but if we can plan for it, it'll make it a whole lot easier. So thanks for making the time to make those capital plans. That's it.
Thanks, Carlin. Nobody else?
No, that seems to be.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
My motion to adjourn. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, that was unanimous.